On the ring, Jason walked slowly towards Kerberos, with a faint smile on his lips, but it chilled Kerberos. "Why, are you scared? Didn't you say that I don't know how to live or die?" Jason's voice condensed into silk and passed into Kerberos's ears. "How you treated Temujin in the last game, I will do it 100 times more now. I'll give it back to you 1,000 times. Pa." Looking at Kebelos's mouth and nose with blood constantly spilling out on the ground, Jason stepped forward, swung his palm violently, and slapped Kebelos hard on the face, sending it flying several meters away. As a 6th-level senior spiritual master, it is very comfortable to slap the face of a 7th-level dual-system imperial spiritual master. Jason always had a smile on his face, and there was no trace of anger in his eyes. Kerberos was flung away 100 meters away, and was heavily smashed into a pile of rubble formed by the previous fierce battle. His mouth was opened wide, but he couldn't even scream. Several raised pieces of the gravel almost broke his ribs. If he hadn't been a 7th-level low-level Emperor Spirit Master, he would have broken his bones and tendons. Another clear bloody palm print appeared on his face. It was extremely red and swollen, competing with the purple palm print on the other side. His face was swollen like a steamed bun. Kerberos struggled to get up, eyes cold, staring at Jason. This time, he did not choose to run away. His right calf bone had been broken by Jason's kick before. Although he didn't know what happened in his body, he also knew that no matter how he ran away, he would not be able to escape faster. Jason. He just looked at Jason with resentful eyes. As a peerless genius of the Cairo Empire, a 7th-level low-level dual-system imperial spiritual master, he had never been so humiliated. In the semifinals of the Continental Elite competition, he was beaten by a 6th-level. The senior spiritual master kept slapping him in the face, and being watched by so many people made him want to find a crack in the ground and burrow down. Are the geniuses of the Cairo Empire so amazing? They were blown away by me, a rubbish from the northwest. There is nothing special about it. Jason always had a faint smile on his face. He rubbed his palms and said in a condensing tone, "But there is something special about it. He is very thick-skinned. It hurts my hand when I slap him." "Doesn't your face hurt?" Pfft, a mouthful of humiliating blood spurted out of Kerberos's mouth. It was such a naked humiliation. Kerberos's lungs almost exploded, and he was extremely aggrieved. He had absolute confidence in his own strength. He was originally planning to repair Jason in the game, just like Temujin in the last game, but the result was everything that happened at this moment was almost unacceptable to him. It was simply a lifelong shame. His heart was filled with resentment towards Jason. As long as he had the chance, he wanted to cut Jason into pieces. "Your Excellency has indeed kept his promise and promised me 100 moves, but he actually didn't take any action. I'm really impressed by this." Jason spoke loudly and walked towards Kerberos. "Is this Kebelos out of his mind or just stupid? He really didn't fight back? Damn, this is too tragic, isn't it? He's already like this, and he's still pretending to be a bigot." Some viewers expressed confusion, and some other viewers frowned. They also felt something was wrong, but they didn't understand what happened. The physical skills Jason performed belonged to the violent spiritual master genre, which had not yet appeared in this era, and no one could tell the clues. On the fighting platform, Jason grabbed the skirt of Kerberos' chest. Suddenly roar. Kerberos suddenly jumped up, roaring in his mouth, his eyes were red, and his expression was crazy. He rushed forward, his hands were like claws, and he slashed at Jay like lightning. Sen's throat instantly reached Jason's Adam's apple. But before his fingers touched Jason's skin, bang! Jason kicked him in the abdomen with lightning speed, and the strong momentum immediately caused Kerberos to fly backwards heavily. It dragged on the ground for more than 10 meters before stopping. He was rolling in pain on the fighting platform, letting out meaningless roars of pain, but he couldn't say a word, and he kept coughing up blood, foam and yellow water. Jason walked slowly towards Kerberos. Kerberos had a look of horror on his face. He stopped rolling and put his right hand into his crotch, as if he was digging for something. This action immediately stunned the hundreds of thousands of spectators in the entire auditorium. What does this Kerberos want to do? Everyone was puzzled. Hiss. There was a sound of cracking cloth, and a broken white knife suddenly appeared in Kerberos's hand. On the white surface, there were even a few small pink flowers embroidered on it. Bellows kept waving his hands, fluttering in the wind. The entire Douling platform was silent, and hundreds of thousands of spectators were all dumbfounded for a moment. In Stern Land, waving white cloth means surrender. This Kerberos reached into his crotch, and actually pulled out his vagina. If he wanted to surrender, there was no need to act like this. This Kerberos just said surrender, it's so indecent. Everyone was shocked by this move. This was the Continental Elite competition held by the Twin Towers. Not Kebelos actually did such a shameful thing, and the players and leaders of the Cairo Empire were full of expressions on their faces. Blush, looking at the white breasts fluttering in the wind with several delicate flowers embroidered on them, they were so embarrassed that they almost vomited blood. However, Jason didn't care at all. Under Kerberos's horrified eyes, he kicked Kerberos hard in the chest again. A series of bone-shattering sounds were heard, and Kerberos spit out several more mouthfuls. He was bleeding, his whole body was twitching, and he fell into a complete coma. Huh. At the VIP table, the team leader from the Cairo Empire couldn't bear it anymore and turned to look at the referee of the game. On the rostrum, the referee wearing a green robe instantly flew over the Douling platform and rumbled, "Dear viewers, in the second match of the semifinals of the Continental Elite competition, Jason from the northwest of the mainland won and advanced to the next level. Final round." As his words fell, a figure flew from the VIP seat to the fighting platform like lightning, and helped the unconscious Kebelos. After feeling Kerberos' body carefully, the old man's face suddenly changed color, and a pair of eyes, like cold blades, fell on Jason's face. He said with anger in his eyes, "Kebelos has already given up defeat before, why did you attack him again?" His eyes were full of resentment, and in his perception, there was only a trace of anger in Kerberos' body at this moment. The breath of life remains, but all the meridians in his body were cut off by Jason in the previous battle. In other words, even if Kerberos is cured, he will probably only be a cripple. Kebelos, that is the second genius among all the players sent by the Cairo Empire to participate in the Continental Elite competition this time. A 7th-level low-level dual-system Imperial spiritual master. Even in the Cairo Empire, he is a peerless genius. But now, it is Jason was almost completely ruined. For a moment, the anger in his heart surged like a volcano erupting, and the surging spiritual power rolled towards Jason like an angry wave. Originally, both Clark and Kerberos entered the semifinals, which made him extremely excited as the leader of Cairo Empire. Although Cairo Empire, as one of the 4 empires, is extremely powerful, 2 players entered the semifinals at the same time, and there have been countless realms that have not appeared before. But now, Clark lost in the last game. He had nothing to say. He could only blame Clark for his inferior skills. He put all his hopes on Kerberos. After all, Kerberos' opponent was only from the northwest. Jason was the 6th-level senior spiritual master. However, now, not only had Kebelos been defeated, but he had become a useless person, which made him extremely angry. The old man's anger also caused the entire audience to startled and gradually became quiet. Facing the old man's anger, Jason's face was extremely calm, without any change, and he said calmly, "Did Kebelos surrender before? Why didn't I know?" "You old man," Supami Zhang, furious. Whoosh! 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 At this moment, 3 streams of light quickly came to Jason. They were Renault, Xuanfeng and Tuale. "Your Excellency, it seems that the white cloth was not waved during the confrontation. Is that the rule of surrender? Do you want to bully the small with the big one?" Tuale said coldly. Although the other party was the leader of the Cairo Empire, Tuolei's face was full of surprises. There was no fear at all. What Kebelos did to Temujin before made Tuolei feel angry. Below, the audience was also talking a lot and waving white cloth. Although it is a common surrender slogan in the mainland, this is the mainland elite competition. According to the rules of the competition, only surrender, or one party is unconscious, falls out of the venue, dies, etc. The game ends when the combat effectiveness is lost, otherwise the game will continue, so what Tuolei said before is correct. Moreover, if Nakbalos wanted to surrender before, he could have spoken out, but why did he choose that way? This was simply because he was looking for trouble. How did the audience present know that the previous Kerberos had been killed by Jason's forbidden spirit in all directions and was unable to speak, so how could he surrender? The appearance of Xuanfeng and others caused a slight commotion in the Cairo Empire team leader's place. Immediately, several figures came to the spirit fighting platform from the VIP seats like lightning, staring coldly at Xuanfeng and others. For a moment, the eyes of several powerful emperor spiritual masters were on the fighting platform with fierce sparks. Kaga. Just when the two sides were at war with each other and there was going to be a conflict at any time, two figures flew from the rostrum to the fighting platform in an instant. They were the two elders of the Twin Towers. Kevlin looked coldly at the old man from the Cairo Empire and said, Kaga, during the competition, there was no rule that waving a white cloth was a sign of surrender. Then what Jason did was not wrong. Why, do you want to disobey? Despite the regulations of the Twin Towers, you still want to take action against the competing disciples on the spirit fighting stage? Kevlin's voice was cold. In his mind, he had long regarded Jason as a member of the Spiritual Medicine Master Tower, and naturally he did not allow others to have anything against him. Hazing. Elder Kevlin Kaga had anger on his face, but he didn't move at all. Although he was an 8th-level senior imperial spiritual master and was an extremely noble being even in the Cairo Empire, he still did not dare to disobey in front of the elders of the Spiritual Medicine Master Tower. Kaga Healer Tatum also said coldly, take Kebelos and exit the spirit fighting platform, and Yu Tim set his sights on Xuanfeng and others. This is the mainland elite competition, not a place for you to fight. His voice was stern, and a faint coercion was released from his body. Xuanfeng and others suddenly felt as if a mountain peak was descending from the sky. It felt like falling down, so heavy that they could hardly breathe. Elder Tim, we are just afraid that something unexpected will happen to our Northwest contestants and they will be forced to go on stage. Xuanfeng said hurriedly. Humph. On the other side of the spirit fighting platform, Kajia looked at Xuanfeng and others coldly, his eyes full of resentment. Everyone in the Northwest, I can't do anything to you in this spirit fighting city, but you don't forget, you in the Northwest are good neighbors to our Cairo Empire. Let's go. After saying all this, Kajia smiled coldly at Xuanfeng and others, and then hugged Kebelos and the other leaders of the Cairo Empire. They immediately flew away from the fighting platform and flew towards the residential area of the Cairo Empire. It was obvious that they were rushing to treat Kerberos. On the spirit fighting platform, Xuanfeng and others showed a hint of anger in their eyes, but they were helpless in the face of Kajia's clamor. At the same time, there was also a hint of worry in their hearts. Nakajia is right. The Northwest and the Cairo Empire are close to each other. Although the Cairo Empire cannot attack the Northwest aggressively, some occasional small frictions are still possible. For the Cairo Empire, this can only be regarded as unacceptable. It's just harassment that doesn't hurt, but for Northwest, it has to be cautious. The departure of Kaga and others immediately eased the originally tense scene. Tim glanced at everyone present lightly, and disappeared from the scene in a flash, while Sevlin smiled slightly at Jason. Finally, he also left Do Ling Tai. Thank you both for your help. Jason came to his father's side on the spirit fighting stage, and then thanked Xuanfeng and Tuolei. In the previous situation, although Xuanfeng had his obligations as the general leader of the Northwest team, in the face of a real crisis, Xuanfeng and Tuo Lei were able to stand up for themselves without fear of each other's identities. It still made Jason feel a little grateful. Haha, Master Jason, why are you so polite? When Master rescued Temujin, I said that if Master can rescue Temujin, I will owe you my life as long as Master doesn't let me. If I do something that betrays the tribe and harms the heaven and earth, no matter how hard it is, I, Tuo Lei, will not hesitate to die. Does the Master think that I, Tuo Lei, am a person who breaks my word? Tuo Lei Lang laughed out loud, then Kebelos almost missed it. After killing Temujin, I saw his miserable appearance before. Haha, this old guy like me felt very happy. If it weren't for the fact that people can't kill people openly in this competition, I would have hoped that the Master would give Nakbalos a move. Killed. On the side, Jason smiled calmly. Although I didn't kill Nakbalos, it's almost the same, unless there is a 9th level healing holy master who consumes a lot of energy or an 8th level elixir emperor who consumes a lot of energy. With the treasures of heaven and earth treating him, I'm afraid Kebelos will have to be a useless person in this life. What? Is this true? Haha. Hearing this, Tuo Lei couldn't help but stare with a hint of surprise. That's natural, Jason said with a smile on his face. As a 9th level elixir master in his previous life, Jason naturally had such confidence. In fact, if Jason's strength hadn't reached the 7th level imperial spiritual master or recovered to the level of his previous life, some of the techniques of exerting force would not have been able to be used. When he reached his peak, Jason could even make Nakabilo's body become so decomposed that no one could heal him. But now, if Nakbalos has a prominent position in the Cairo Empire, it is still possible to recover as long as he can get some 9th level Holy Spirit masters who specialize in healing or 8th level elixir emperor masters to repair him. Haha. Tuo Lei felt so happy at this moment. As the Western Wilderness tribe in the northwest of the mainland, although it also belongs to the northwest, it is still far away from the Cairo Empire, so naturally there is nothing to fear. Tuo Lei had already known about Jason's knowledge of elixirs when he treated Temujin before. Tuo Lei was naturally very convinced of his words. On the side, although Xuanfeng also had a smile on his face, he still couldn't hide the worry in his eyes. During the conversation, Jason and others left the Douling platform and walked towards the outside of the Douling platform. Wow! Not long after Jason and the others left, the entire audience at the spirit fighting stage suddenly burst into excitement. We won, then Jason actually defeated Kerberos? It's incredible. The key is that Jason won easily. In normal competitions, Kerberos, who is a 7th level dual system imperial spiritual master, was always beaten. He suppressed the attack and didn't even release a powerful attack. Then Jason only used the skills of 3 extreme spirit rings this time. It's terrible. Then the first spirit ring each time, Kerberos's skills can make Kerberos fall into a state of confusion. Then, with the skills on the 3rd spiritual ring, Kerberos will suffer a lot of injuries every time he strikes with the sword. As a 7th level low-level dual-element emperor, he is a spiritual master, but he completely suppressed Jason in terms of spiritual power level. He was seriously injured by Jason with just a few swords? Every time the spirit ring skill is used, the spirit ring above the player's head there will be tremors and fluctuations, so some powerful viewers can see what kind of skills Jason used in previous battles. What's even more terrifying is Jason's attributes. Haven't you seen that Jason's 3 limit spiritual rings? The edge of the first one is colorless, the edge of the second one is red, and the edge of the third one is red. The edge is golden, indicating that he has 3 attributes. Yes, I saw it too. That Jason is actually a spiritual master of the 3 elements. It's so scary. All the audience couldn't help but be shocked. No one could calm. In the previous games, Jason basically defended passively. Until the end, he hit an instant critical strike and defeated the opponent. He never showed the spiritual ring and spiritual power attributes, so no one knew that this hero Mori surprisingly possesses 3 extreme spiritual rings, and each spiritual ring is different. On the mainland, most spiritual masters have one attribute. Only a small number of spiritual masters can sense 2 or more spiritual powers. But in fact, even some spiritual masters can feel 2 or more spiritual powers. However, the vast majority of spiritual masters will only choose the spiritual attribute with the strongest induction and the highest talent to practice. Only a few spiritual masters who have extremely high affinity for multiple spiritual elements will choose to practice in multiple disciplines. However, such spiritual masters are rare and very rare. For example, in this continental elite competition among the top 100 geniuses, only Kebelos is a dual-system spiritual master. But at the moment, it was discovered that Jason was a 3-line spiritual master, even rarer than Kerberos. Although in Stern Continent, the more attributes, the stronger the strength, but Jason's identity as a 3-series spiritual master still surprised everyone. If the audience present knew that Jason was not only if the attributes of the other 2 spirit rings of a spiritual master of the 3 lines are also different, I am afraid everyone present will be surprised to what extent. Amidst the discussion, the audience around the Do Ling platform gradually left the stage in order, but the unexpected endings of today's 2 battles still made everyone excited. In the first game between Leonardo and Clark, although Leonardo won in the end, which surprised everyone, there were still many people who supported Leonardo after all. But in the second game Jason's victory was a surprise to everyone, especially when Jason beat Kerberos violently in the end, but Kerberos didn't fight back at all, leaving everyone confused. In fact, many viewers still felt that something was wrong about Kerberos' anomaly, but in this era, before violent spiritual masters appeared, no one would have thought that Jason's quick method would actually make as a 7th-level low-level dual-element Imperial spiritual master. Kebelos had his spiritual power sealed inside his body and could not even speak. After all, this is too shocking. A 6th-level senior spiritual master can actually seal all the spiritual power in a 7th-level Imperial spiritual master, leaving him with only the power of his body. I am afraid that even if he says this, he will not. Some people believe it. Just imagine, in real life, a child suddenly bumped into an adult man. As a result, the man's ribs were broken the next day, his internal organs were ruptured, and he had internal bleeding. Even if the man was asked to think about what happened yesterday, most people would probably not think of it. The same thing happened with the child. In just a moment, the 2 battles in the semifinals spread throughout Lingdo City in an instant, and at the same time spread to the cities around Lingdo City. Among all the information, the one that was mentioned the most was naturally Leonardo, who defeated Clark. The 6 terrifying spiritual rings and illusions were used by Clark even as a 7th-level senior Imperial spiritual master with extremely strong will. Being trapped in it and unable to extricate yourself is enough to shock everyone. Many people predict that Leonardo's current strength is enough to defeat all spiritual masters at the level of 7th-level senior Imperial spiritual masters. At the same time, the power of the illusion spiritual master has once again made everyone in the continent aware of it. Although the finals have not yet begun, in everyone's mind, the champion has already appeared, that is Leonardo of the Salem Empire. As for Jason, he can represent the Northwest and enter the finals as a 6th-level senior spiritual master. Among them, and possessing 3 series of extreme spiritual rings, many people admire him, but despite being admired, most people still remain skeptical about Jason's strength. It's not that he is not strong enough, but that he is not strong enough to enter the finals. Although Jason defeated Kerberos in the semifinals, in the hearts of the audience, among the eliminated players, whether it was Clark, still Sophia, both have the strength to defeat Jason completely. Jason's advancement was only based on luck and a small amount of strength. And when the entire Lingdo City was talking about today's semifinals, in a certain room in the Twin Towers Administrative Center, Hanks, tonight, you are going to contact Leonardo from the Salem Empire and be sure to bring him into our Twin Towers. You can promise him a place as a senior disciple and tell him that as long as he performs well, he with his strength, it is not impossible to become a core disciple. Johnson, tonight, you go contact Clark from the Cairo Empire and give him a place as a senior disciple. Carol, you go contact Sophia from the Wei-Tian Empire. If she is willing to join our spiritual master tower, you can also give him a place as a senior disciple. His senior disciples quota. Garcia, tonight, you contact Lavanzi from the Kamikaze Empire and be sure to let him join our spiritual master tower. Tell him that with his talent in the dark system, I wanted to accept him in the first place. Elder Radamandes, who is a disciple of Patriarch Haig of the Decker family, will definitely be interested. In the conference room where the spiritual master tower is located in the administrative center, Tim, the elder of the spiritual master tower, is giving orders to all the guardians. Now that the mainland elite competition has come to an end, in addition to the finals, the previous results of the players are also presented in front of everyone, and the talents of all players are also known to Tim, the elder of the spiritual master tower. My own answer. As for the finals, although they haven't started yet, anyone who is not an idiot can see that Leonardo's illusion of defeating Clark is the 6th level advanced Jason. No matter how talented he is, elimination is his only possibility. Therefore, at this time, it is also the time for the Twin Towers to start taking action. The purpose of the Continental Elite competition is to select elite talents from all over the continent. If the move is slow, all the outstanding players will be snatched away by the people from the Medicine Master Tower. Then Tim can only cry. After announcing his decision to all the guardians in the room, Tim couldn't help but frowned. In his impression, he seemed to have forgotten someone. Oh, by the way, it's Jason. After filtering out all the top 10 players one by one, Tim suddenly realized who he had forgotten. I didn't expect Jason to actually have phantom attributes. Thinking of Jason, Tim couldn't help but smile bitterly in his heart, but although Jason didn't develop well in the later stage, he was the 2nd place in this competition after all. If he is found in the Spiritual Medicine Master Tower, it will be a loss to our Spiritual Master Tower in terms of reputation. It is better to give him the status of an inner disciple and let him practice on his own in our Spiritual Master Tower to see how far he can go. Stay away. Thinking of this, Tim immediately said to Carol, Carol, after you contact Sophia, go to the Northwest residential area to find Jason. You are the most familiar with him. You must let Jason join my Spiritual Master Tower, and if necessary, you can give him the status of an inner disciple. Yes, Lord Tim. Carol said respectfully in the crowd. All right everyone, this is your mission tonight. Everyone, go back and prepare. You must complete the mission I assigned and pull all the geniuses of this generation into my Spiritual Master Tower. Tim said loudly. Yes. Everyone in the conference room said respectfully, and then left the room one by one. The residential area where the Cairo Empire was located. No, desperate roars came from a certain room. When they heard this voice, everyone felt the despair that came from deep in their hearts. Lord Kagia, my body will definitely recover, right? I will definitely recover in the room, Kebelos cried bitterly and looked at Kagia, the leader of the team, with great expectation. In the room, Kagia and the others were silent. They all sighed imperceptibly and shook their heads. After being treated by the elixir master who came with the Cairo Empire this time, Kerberos has woken up from his coma. However, when he felt the severe pain radiating from all parts of his body and the completely broken meridians in his body, he almost became stupid. Especially after learning from the team's elixir master that he would be a useless person in the future, Kerberos's heart seemed to fall into hell. The Cairo Empire is one of the 4 major empires in the mainland. The elixir master accompanying the team this time is a 7th level low-level elixir master from the Imperial Elixir Master Academy. With his identity and status, he will naturally not talk nonsense, and the diagnosis he made is, it was tantamount to giving Kerberos a death sentence. Time passed quickly, and the rest day was quiet, but everyone could feel the passionate and exciting atmosphere. The match day of the 7th round finally came as expected amidst the expectations of all spectators. In the early morning, the bright sunshine shines on the earth, covering the entire Lingdo city with a layer of golden cloves. Early in the morning, the entire Lingdo city suddenly became lively like ants in a frying pan. Countless people flocked to the Lingdo platform in the center of Lingdo city. The hundreds of thousands of seats were already packed before the game started, and the roar of the place was soaring into the sky, making the Douling platform extremely hot. Today is the final of the Continental Elite competition held every 10 years. Even those who did not have time to watch the previous rounds still want to watch this final. Although almost everyone knew the result of today's game, this did not affect their enthusiasm. As the game time approached, Jason and others came to the VIP seats at the Douling platform. "Jason, work hard and don't be stressed," Xuanfeng said with a smile. "Haha, Jason, no matter whether you win or lose this battle, you are our hero in the Northwest," Tuolei said loudly. "That Leonardo is very strong, work hard. Come on. Come on, Jason." All the players and team leaders from the Northwest shouted out encouragement. "Jason, your first spirit ring should also be a spiritual attack. As soon as you get up, use your first spirit ring to attack him so that he can't cast illusions in time, and then quickly use other attacks, regardless of the power. The purpose is to interfere with him. You must not let his illusions take effect. If he takes action first, you will be in danger." Denisha had fought with Leonardo before and knew how powerful he was. She said with concern. Faced with everyone's encouragement and concern, Jason smiled and nodded. Although they knew Jason's strength very clearly, Xuanfeng and others also knew that Jason's probability of losing in this final was almost 100%. Fortunately, although Leonardo's phantom attack was powerful, he was defeated by him. However, almost none of the players was injured, so Xuanfeng and others were very relieved about Jason's safety. "Master, come on, come back as a champion," Claire shouted as she looked at Jason's passage to the competition. "Definitely." Jason's confident and hearty laughter came from a distance, but it shocked Xuanfeng and others. The game time was finally approaching. When both players were ready, a cyan figure once again flew over the Douling platform on the rostrum. "Wow!" The entire audience in the auditorium shouted excitedly. "I think everyone can't wait, right?" Above the sky, the cyan figure said with a smile, "To be honest, I am also looking forward to it. I won't talk nonsense here. Now, please, the two players who broke into this Continental Elite competition enter." The first one to appear is the genius from the Saran Empire, the 4 major continental empires. The third place in the trial space of this Continental Elite competition, the Emperor of the 7th level intermediate fantasy system. Spiritual Master, Leonardo. 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 The cheers were like thunder, and the entire auditorium cheered, and countless spectators shouted roaring out, venting their excitement. The sky-shaking noise resounded in the square, like rumbling thunder, soaring into the sky, echoing in the clouds, and spreading throughout Lingdo City in an instant. Amidst the cheers, a figure wearing a black robe and a sword hanging from his waist slowly walked up to the fighting platform. "Is this Leonardo? He really has the demeanor of a master. The absolute champion of this Continental Elite competition." Everyone in the audience was excited. The next person to appear is the genius from the northwest of the mainland. The first place in the Continental Elite competition trial space, the 6th level advanced spiritual master, Jason. As the referee's words fell, the entire audience seemed to be mute. It's normal, there are only a few voices, and it's extremely quiet. Coming out of the competition tunnel, Jason, carrying a black heavy sword on his back, calmly walked onto the fighting platform. "Jason, come on. Master, come on, come back as a champion. Jason, ho, ho. Sensing the silence in the fighting arena, a group of players from the northwest roared angrily. Win the championship? Haha, that's too funny. Claire's words immediately made the entire audience burst into laughter, but there was no hint of ridicule in their laughter, and some were just joy. Jason! Jason! As Claire and the others roared, everyone in the audience cheered. Although everyone believed that Leonardo could win, facing Jason, who entered the final stage of the competition with the strength of a 6th-level senior spiritual master, all the audience's hearts were filled with admiration. Thunderous cheers resounded in the fighting arena, and the fiery breath could be seen at a glance. I estimate that Jason can't survive 5 moves under Leonardo's hands. 5 moves? Humph, you think too highly of Jason. The 6th-level senior, who met Leonardo earlier, the spiritual master, fell into Leonardo's illusion at the beginning of the game and couldn't even block a move. Yeah, I think too, he can't block a move. It's a pity that gambling is not allowed in the Twin Towers of the mainland elite competition, otherwise I would definitely win with Leonardo, although the odds are definitely low, but who wouldn't make it for free? Many viewers were talking and wanted to see how many moves Leonardo could use to defeat Jason. On the fighting stage, Jason and Leonardo faced each other from a distance, with a smile on the corners of their mouths. Jason, your will is very strong. Leonardo said in a hoarse voice, but when you meet me, you have no hope. Since you also have the fantasy spirit ring and the finals, I will make it. I will use all my strength to eliminate you with one move. Really? Are you very confident? Jason grinned, but his eyes were brighter. Based on what you said before, I will give you one move, but it's a pity that the championship is mine. Leonardo smiled lightly and said nothing, but his dreamy eyes kept flashing. The two people's voices were not deliberately suppressed. Although they were not loud, some powerful audience members still heard their conversation. What? Then Jason said he wanted Leonardo to do a move. Are you kidding me? Then Jason is crazy, right? Suddenly, some viewers couldn't help but scream in surprise. What? What did the two of them say just now? Some weak spectators asked the spectators next to them with doubts on their faces. When they knew the content of the conversation between the two, most of the contestants laughed. Haha, this Jason is too funny. He wants Leonardo to do something? In the last game, Clark from the Cairo Empire tried his best, but he still couldn't defeat Leonardo. He was just a 6th-level senior spirit master? Haha, you're laughing so hard. Please, Jason, can you please stop teasing me like this? Some viewers couldn't help but hold their stomachs in their hands. Jason's previous words were so joyful, just like a child dueling with a big man, and the child said to the big man maturely, I'll let you move. Haha, you don't understand this, Jason is so smart. An audience member retorted, even if he loses then, it can be attributed to the fact that he gave up one move to Leonardo. At this time, no one can find fault. After all, even Clark doesn't dare to let Leonardo take one more move. Hey, you're right? Haha, so that's the reason. Many people laughed. Laugh it out. On the fighting stage, Jason and Leonardo faced each other from a distance, their eyes intertwined, and invisible sparks shot out. Both of them were waiting for the announcement. At this moment, okay, since both players are ready, then, the final of the Continental Elite competition will be between Leonardo from the Salem Empire and Jason from the Northwestern Continent. Now I announce that the game has begun. The voice of the referee wearing a green robe came from afar, and the voice echoed in the ears of everyone in the entire Douling platform. Almost at the same moment, the battle broke out on the Douling platform. Leonardo, who was wearing a black robe, his eyes suddenly flowed like a kaleidoscope, and at the same time his spiritual power shook violently. Buzz. 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 A total of 6 spiritual rings rose from Leonardo's head at the same time and floated behind Leonardo's head. At the same time, the phantoms of 6 different spiritual beasts flashed above Leonardo's head at the same time. 3 ordinary spiritual rings and 3 extreme spiritual rings were constantly trembling and flashing. However, the most powerful spiritual power fluctuation was Leonardo's 6th spiritual ring, the ultimate spiritual ring of the 6 fearful phantom demons. At the same time, the huge phantoms of 6 fearful phantoms also appeared above Leonardo's head. The 6 little heads on the muscles stared at Jason not far away in horror, and the 6 little faces kept screaming, making a sharp sound. A wave of void spiritual power shot out from Leonardo's eyes in an instant and disappeared into Jason's body. Invisible spiritual power quietly sneaked into the spiritual sea of Jason's mind. The spiritual sea is vast and boundless. Above the spiritual sea, it is filled with gas-like spiritual power, and deep in the spiritual power is the existence of the soul. Who? The nihilistic spiritual power exerted by Leonardo sneaked into Jason's spiritual sea, and then spread in Jason's spiritual sea. At the same time, the trace of soul power contained in the 6 fearful phantoms also had a powerful impact on Jason. The soul is seduced. Then Jason really didn't take action right away. Oh my God, he didn't really want Leonard to take one more move. He also knew that even if he took action right away, he would still be in trouble. Leonardo can't be hurt at all. On the spirit fighting stage, Jason fell into a state of confusion under Leonardo's illusion attack. It's over. At the VIP table, Xuanfeng and others also had a trace of disappointment on their faces. Leonardo's illusion was under the amplitude of the 6th level spirit ring. Even Clark couldn't break free. With Jason's strength, it was impossible. There is hope of winning. One moment he was clearly fighting with Leonardo, but a moment later, Jason's consciousness fell into another scene. In the Todd family mansion in the Kingdom of Orlando. Jason, Claire was killed. Renault looked at Jason with worry on his face. I'm sorry, Jason, the other party was an 8th level advanced Emperor Spirit Master. I didn't have time to save him. Reno's face was also full of pain and self-blame. Yes, Jason, that 8th level senior Emperor Spiritual Master is really coming to kill you now. You should run away quickly. Dylan's face was also full of worry. Jason, you go first. Even if we die, we can't let him hurt you. Rost also said anxiously. Looking at the scene in front of him, Jason's face was dull and expressionless. This illusion also wants to affect me. A sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth, his eyes suddenly opened, and a flash of electricity erupted. My will is as strong as a rock, as sharp as a knife, and as fast as lightning. Break it for me, Jason roared in his consciousness, and suddenly, the whole world gradually became distorted, and everything shattered like a dream bubble, showing that out of the original scene. Leonardo wins. All the viewers in the audience made their judgment the moment Jason fell into the illusion. They were all waiting for the moment when Jason fell into coma. However, at this moment Jason, whose eyes were in a daze, was shaken all over and woke up from his daze. How is that possible? The audience was watching everything on the field. When they saw this scene, their eyes suddenly widened. Leonardo's eyes, opposite Jason, were also filled with shock. The secret method of my Huantian technique, combined with the unique effect of the spiritual rings brought by the 6 fearful phantom demons, the illusions I cast, even ordinary 8th level low-level Emperor spiritual masters have the possibility of falling into, even in the last battle Clark is simply difficult to resist. Why is he such a 6th level advanced spiritual master? Even if he can fall into the illusion without being deceived, it will take time to struggle out of the illusion, but Leonardo's heart couldn't be calm. I told you to take one move. Next, take my move. Jason stepped forward, buzz. A golden limit spirit ring quickly rose from the top of his head, and then, the shadow of the spiritual beast suddenly appeared above his head. It was a creature the size of a black cat, but it had a twisted human face. On the top of its head, there were 9 long tendons, and each hairy head had a scary black head. A small human face, and the one in the middle of the 9 small human faces is still a terrifying blood color. Just one look at it makes people feel terrified, and a chill can't help but rise in their hearts. This is seeing the phantom of the spirit beast appearing above Jason's head. The audience looked at the 6 fear phantoms above Leonardo's head, and then at the 9 heads above Jason's head. Fearing the phantom, everyone was stunned. Leonardo, who was opposite him, was also completely stunned. Above Jason's head, the blood-red head among the 9 fearful phantom demons looked coldly at the group of phantom spirit beasts above Leonardo's head. The 6-headed spiritual beasts above Leonardo's head screamed in terror, especially the first-level fearful phantoms, the 3-headed fearful phantoms, and the 6-headed fearful phantoms, which were more like seeing gods, directly surrendered. The terrifying coercion of the 9-headed fear phantoms dispersed. Bang! The phantoms of the 6 spiritual beasts above Leonardo's head all collapsed in the air. Pfft! Leonardo twitched all over and spurted a mouthful of blood before he could react. Buzz! Jason's eyes flowed, and a strange mental attack quickly flew out of his eyes and disappeared into Leonardo's body. Boom! In front of hundreds of thousands of spectators in the fighting arena, Leonardo's eyes were dull and he fell straight down. The entire dueling arena was suddenly silent. On the fighting platform, Jason stood coldly and proudly, as if he had never made a move, but Leonardo, who fell there not far in front of him, walked towards everyone to show that Leonardo had been attacked. A breeze blew by, blowing Jason's long black hair into the air. However, the entire fighting arena seemed to be frozen instantly, and there was no sound at all. In the spirit fighting arena, hundreds of thousands of spectators all stared at Jason and Leonardo on the spirit fighting platform with their eyes wide open and their mouths opened wide. Their eyeballs fell to the ground. My heart was extremely shocked. A moment later, this one move, just one move, this unbelievable. What happened? What's going on? Then what's on Jason's first-level spiritual ring? What spirit beast? Why is it so similar to Leonardo's spirit beast? I heard that the spirit beast that Leonardo absorbed is a first-level fear phantom demon, a third-level 3-headed fear phantom demon, and a 6th-level fear beast. The 6-headed fearful phantoms of the 9th level are said to be extremely rare spiritual beasts, but what are Jason's spiritual beasts? The 9-headed fearful phantoms of the 9th level? But the limit spirit ring released by Jason, according to its size and the position, it is clearly a first-level limit spirit ring? 9-headed fearful phantom demon, are there such spiritual beasts on the mainland? All the audience were puzzled, and a lot of doubts arose in their hearts. No one in the room could remain calm, as if there was a storm in their hearts. Everyone was stunned. Even Xuanfeng and Tuolei had horror in their eyes. How on earth did this Jason do it? They all knew that Jason's first spiritual ring was the ultimate spiritual ring of the illusion system, and they also knew that the first spiritual ring could release a spiritual attack that could make the spiritual master lose consciousness, but they never knew that the spiritual rings what exactly is a spirit beast. Seeing the phantom of the spiritual beast floating above Jason's head, Tim, Sevlin, and others on the main stage all stood up in shock for a moment. It's the 9-headed fearful phantom. There is such a spiritual beast on the mainland. Tim and Kevlin's faces were full of shock. As the strongest among the top twin towers in the mainland, other spiritual masters don't know what the spiritual beast above Jason's head is. But they both knew something about it. It's impossible. According to the records in the data, although this 9-headed fear phantom is only a first-level spiritual beast, any spiritual disciple above the first level can kill it, but when its illusion is used, except for the 9th level Holy Spirit Master, even the 8th level Peak Emperor Spiritual Master would be completely trapped in the illusion of his soul, so how could Jason obtain its spiritual ring? Tim's face was full of doubts, and he said in his mouth, and even if Jason was lucky enough to kill him, it would be impossible to absorb the spiritual heart of the 9-headed fearful phantom demon. The soul power contained in the heart of the fearful illusory demon spirit is enough to dissipate his soul in an instant and turn him into an idiot. For a time, all the audience in the entire fighting arena were talking about it, and they were completely confused about the previous scene. Shocked. But no matter what, Leonardo was still lying unconscious on the fighting platform. Where is the referee? Why? Isn't the game over yet? On the spirit fighting stage, Jason frowned and said something when he saw that the referee hadn't appeared for a long time. On the main stage, the referee's expression was still in shock. After hearing Jason's words, he immediately glanced at Tim and Coughlin. The two of them also recovered from the shock and said to the referee nodded. Wow. The cyan figure instantly appeared in the sky above the fighting platform. His expression was full of excitement. He shouted loudly, "Everyone!" The referee's loud shout immediately brought all the audience back to reality from the shock. The referee's expression was excited and he shouted, "Everyone, the results of this mainland elite competition finals are out. Jason, a genius from the northwest of the mainland, defeated 7 people from the Salem Empire with the strength of a 6th-level senior spiritual master. Leonardo, the intermediate illusion system imperial spirit master, won the championship of this continental elite competition. Now let us give our cheers to this genius who is only 22 years old and thank him for bringing us come to such a wonderful game." The referee's voice fell, and the whole place fell silent, and then, wow! The whole square instantly became boiling. "Jason, Jason, champion, champion, ho, ho!" The audience instantly burst into thunderous cheers. No one was spared. In this warm atmosphere, the audience cheered. Everyone was instantly infected, and one by one stood up and roared crazily. Wonderful, so wonderful. Exciting, extremely exciting. One move. In the finals, Jason only used one move from beginning to end, which was to defeat Leonardo. Ranked first in the trial space, first in the arena, a true champion. Did you hear that? Jason is only 22 years old? Only 22 years old. No wonder he looks so young. Everyone is extremely excited. In everyone's minds, Leonardo has long been regarded as the final champion. However, they did not expect that in the end, it was Jason Chiefing who everyone was not optimistic about, and he could win or lose with one move. It was so unexpected to have the final champion in his arms. As an audience, naturally no one wants to watch a battle where the outcome is already known. The emergence of a dark horse can arouse the excitement in their hearts. At this moment, everyone cheered with all their strength. Even though Jason was only from the northwest of the mainland, and even though Jason was only a 6th-level senior spiritual master, this did not hinder the audience's love for him at all. Amidst the cheers of everyone, Leonardo, who had been stunned by Jason's mental attack before, slowly woke up on the spirit fighting platform. He jumped up suddenly. After feeling the situation around him, he was stunned for a moment. He paused, and then a wry smile appeared on his face. "You win." Looking at Jason not far away, Leonardo wiped the bloodshot eyes from the corner of his mouth, his expression full of loneliness. In Leonardo's heart, these warm cheers and the championship should have belonged to him, but now, who was that spiritual beast before? Leonardo looked at Jason and said in a low voice, with a look in his eyes. "Desire. 9-headed fearful phantom." Jason said indifferently. Sure enough, Leonardo was shocked, and then nodded, but there was no dissatisfaction in his heart. As an imperial spiritual master of the illusion system, he possesses 6 fearful phantom demon spirit rings. Naturally, he has some understanding of the 9-headed fearful phantom demon. For ordinary spiritual masters, the 9-headed fearful phantom spirit ring may only make them a little distracted, but for Leonardo, who is an illusionist, the 9-headed fearful phantom completely surpasses all of his attributes in terms of attributes. The coercion emanating from the spirit ring can make him vomit blood and get injured, and the mental attack released can even make him fall into coma instantly. Therefore, Leonardo was convinced by the result of this competition. He could only smile bitterly. After defeating a powerful enemy like Clark, it was indeed his misfortune to meet someone with the 9-headed fearful phantom spirit ring. "Haha, the young master is the champion," the young master is the champion. Claire cheered extremely excitedly at the VIP table, her face full of joy. On the side, Renaud also had a smile on his face, with a knowing smile in his eyes. Jason, you have become so powerful without knowing it. Although I have never slacked off in the past 4 years, the gap between you and me has become farther and farther away from 4 years ago. Maybe, he is the kind of genius who is born to be looked up to, but among the crowd Sri Lanka gritted his teeth and said with firm eyes, I will not give up easily. One day, I will be famous on the mainland like you. Li Wan. Jason, congratulations on winning the championship. However, I will work hard in the next days. One day I will surpass you. Behind Tuale, Temujin said with a smile on his face. But he was extremely determined. Jason. Dini Shah murmured to herself, her eyes were blurred, and there was a slight smile on her lips. I knew that you would shine brightly in this continental elite competition. Master, you are too much. Awesome, haha. Among the Kamikaze Empire's team, Melting Saint was also smiling. It was Jason who won the championship in the end. What a piece of shit. While everyone was happy and cheering for Jason, there were still many contestants in the crowd who were extremely jealous. Voice. It's just a coincidence. Once we enter the Twin Towers, I'm afraid the original shape will be revealed. Since Jason won the first place in the trial space in a blockbuster, these players have been unhappy with Jason. As Jason continues to advance in the ring, their jealousy of Jason is getting deeper and deeper. Although Jason's battles made them understand that Jason did have great strength, but at the same time they were shocked, their hearts were still filled with jealousy. Jason. In the Cairo Empire team, Clark looked cold and expressionless, while Kaga and others had resentment in their eyes. Jason? It's interesting. In the Weition Empire's team, the extremely holy Sophia looked at Jason on the spirit fighting platform and smiled. The touching smile immediately stunned the players on the side. Amid the boundless noise, the referee's voice sounded again in the sky. In this continental elite competition, Leonardo of the Saran Empire ranked second, Clark of the Cairo Empire ranked third, and Kebelos of the Cairo Empire ranked fourth. With the referee's announcement, the continental elite competition finally came to an end amidst the cheers of countless spectators. And the name Jason, as well as Northwest, will eventually spread to everyone present. The entire continent has become a dazzling star rising on the continent. Amidst the vigorous noise, the continental elite competition that lasted for more than a year has finally ended. Jason and other players who came all the way from the Northwest finally exhaled a long breath. Even if it was Jason, and he felt a lot more relaxed. Although Jason didn't care too much about the outcome of each game, when he actually won the championship, Jason still felt a bit of a dream. For himself in the spiritual world, Jason is naturally very arrogant when it comes to medicine, but when it comes to fighting spiritual masters, Jason is also full of confidence, but in fact, he also knows that winning the championship in this continental elite competition is still a fluke. It is recognized that among the 3 top players, Jason happened to meet Leonardo, who had restrained attributes, and finally won the championship easily, which he did not expect. If he had met 2 other people in the finals, maybe the outcome would have been different. It's okay if it's Sophia. As a light spiritual master, Sophia's strongest mysteries usually lie in the soul. Jason, who has a peak holy soul, naturally won't be afraid of any soul attacks, but if he meets Clark, then Jason might be in danger. After all, Clark, who is a 7th level high-level gold-type Imperial spiritual master, is too powerful. With Clark's understanding of the laws of the metal system, even if he faces an ordinary 8th level low-level Emperor spiritual master, he has the power to fight. Jason's greatest trick is the Wrath of God, that is a fusion of supernatural powers, but Jason is not low on whether Wrath of God can kill a character like Clark. But for Jason, these are nothing. His purpose of participating in the Continental Elite competition is not to win any championship, but to improve himself. Otherwise, in the finals, Jason will not. It will give Leonardo a move, and he can use Soul Shock immediately. You must know that if Leonardo failed to block this move, the championship would probably change hands. However, he did not hesitate at all, because he never forgot the purpose of his trip, to train himself and improve himself. He wanted to try Leonardo's spiritual attack, to gain experience in facing spiritual attacks. Unfortunately, Leonardo's illusion attack, which is a 7th level Imperial Spiritual Master, is not effective for a soul with a peak holy level. For Jason, who had experienced the illusion of life and death in the god-killing Nadim Jintong Temple, it was really a bit weak. This night, the entire northwest residential area was brightly lit and there were bursts of laughter. This night was also destined to unable to calm down. The results of this Continental Elite competition were also transmitted by countless forces intelligence personnel, through messenger eagles or spiritual communication arrays, to all directions in the continent and into the hands of major forces. It was also the first time that the name Jason appeared on the desks of the leaders of major forces in the mainland. The Northwest is boiling. The Kingdom of Orlando is boiling. The whole continent is also boiling. Especially in the Northwest, this time unexpectedly, 4 players entered the top 100 and were able to join the Twin Towers. For a big force like the Cairo Empire, it is naturally nothing. But for some people in the Northwest, for the small forces nearby, they were all dumbfounded. The friction between these forces and the Northwest at the border in the past stopped instantly. Although the highest combat power of the Northwest has not undergone any substantial changes. However, with the end of this Continental Elite competition, 4 Northwest players joined the Twin Towers. 2 players entered the top 8. Especially Jason won the championship, which made Northwest completely different. One person can ascend to heaven, and everyone knows that those like Jason and Temujin who only entered the Twin Towers in the first 8 days will definitely gain a good status, enough to intimidate most small forces. What? The champion of this Continental Elite competition is that Jason? Jason of the Todd family of the Kingdom of Orlando? This is impossible. The meeting hall on the top floor of the main building of the Daos family mansion in Cairo Empire, Shawnee County. The old men faced each other. Looking at the patriarch Rao in front of the conference table in astonishment, his face was full of shock. The Twin Towers are quite far away from the Cairo Empire, but the speed of information transmission is extremely fast. A few days later, the results of the mainland elite competition came from the Twin Towers after it was passed to the Cairo Empire and then fell into the hands of Rao. Rao immediately held an emergency family meeting. In the conference room, the atmosphere in the air was strangely almost solid, making people feel extremely depressed. Impossible? Rao sneered twice. It's clearly written in the Empire's intelligence. In addition to Jason, there is a girl named Claire in the Kingdom of Orlando, who also broke into the mainland elite competition. The 32 strong ones have the qualifications to enter the Twin Towers, and Claire is said to be one of Jason's maids. What? Around the round table, all the elders looked at each other, their faces full of shock, recalling the news that Chief Rao had said before, with disbelief in their eyes. Chief Rao, is this news true? After a long time, a wrinkled old man frowned and said, with a hint of trembling in his tone. This is the news sent back by the Empire's intelligence collectors in Spirit Do City. Do you think it is true? Rao said coldly. Then Jason not only won the championship of the Continental Elite competition, but also won the semifinals. Lieutenant General Kerberos of our Cairo Empire was beaten into a useless person, and the first genius sent by our empire to participate in the Continental Elite competition, Clark, a 7th level senior Imperial Spiritual Master, only ranked 3rd. What? Well, when Jason just returned to the Kingdom of Orlando a year ago, the news from Parsons and the family said that Jason was a low-level 6th level spiritual master. How come it has only been a year? Jason is here. In the Continental Elite competition, he actually defeated Kebelos, the 7th level low-level dual-system Imperial spiritual master of the Empire, into a useless person, and even won the championship of the Continental Elite competition. This is incredible. An old man said in shock. There is nothing incredible. According to the intelligence, this Jason is a 6th-level senior spiritual master, but he has a variety of attributes. In the first round of the trial space, he ranked first. Joining the Twin Towers is already a certainty. What you need to consider is what to do next. Rao continued to speak coldly. Silence. There was silence in the whole hall. Many elders looked at each other and frowned. When Jason and Reno made a strong return to the Kingdom of Orlando last year, everyone present was surprised by Reno's promotion speed. They did not make a decision at the beginning and could only let Parsons continue to observe. After all, after returning to the Kingdom of Orlando, Reno did not hesitate to kill 2 7th-level Imperial spiritual masters from the Decker family of the Kamikaze Empire. As members of the Decker family, they would definitely counterattack. They all wanted to see how Reno would respond to the counterattack of the Decker family. However, not long after, there was news that he was an 8th-level low-level Emperor spirit from the exit of the Hengduan Mountains in the Northwest countries. The Masters Reno actually killed the Linden Patriarch of the Decker family, who was an 8th-level intermediate Imperial spiritual master, with one man's power. This news immediately shocked many elders of the Daos family. Unexpectedly, only a year has passed now, and it has been reported that Jason of the Todd family actually won the championship of this Continental Elite competition with the strength of a 6th-level senior spiritual master. The impact of this news is even greater than before. Reno jumped over the level and killed the Linden clan leader, which still surprised everyone. Reno is powerful and good, but after the 8th level, it is extremely difficult to advance to each level. As long as Reno fails to advance to the 8th level of peak Imperial Spiritual Master when the tenure appointment comes, the Daos family will not be able to not the slightest bit of fear. But Jason is different. Although he is not strong now, and maybe he will not be strong when the tenure agreement comes, but he enters the Twin Towers with such talent. Once he is spotted by a strong man in the Twin Towers and accepted as a disciple, the time is no longer something that the now declined Daos family can fight against. When I think of this, all the elders present are filled with worry. Today's Daos family, just like the Decker family of the Kamikaze Empire, can no longer withstand any powerful blow. Humph, even then, what should Jason be afraid of when he enters the Twin Towers? Although the Twin Towers are strong, our Daos family is a family of the Cairo Empire. Can the Twin Towers still control us? Our Cairo Empire is no weaker than the Twin Towers in terms of status. At this moment, Augustus stood up and spoke again. Although Jason's news really surprised him, there was no fear on his face. I, the Daos family, also have geniuses. The disciples are in the Holy Land of the Empire. On the day when the tenure agreement comes, it is okay for Jason and Reno to come by themselves. If the Twin Towers support them, the Holy Land of the Empire will never ignore them. And from this time, among the geniuses sent by our Empire to the Twin Towers to participate in the Continental Elite competition, there is Clark, a direct descendant of the Holy Land. I think everyone should be able to see the attitude of the Empire. At this time, we can only stand on the side of the Empire. Winning over Jason, if it was before, it would be nothing. But once Jason becomes a disciple of the Twin Towers, the political significance of it, elders, you must think clearly. Augustus' words made all the elders present. His whole body was shaken. When the Empire sent Clark to the Twin Towers to participate in the Continental Elite competition, it caused some discussion within the Empire. Clark's family is a direct family of the Empire's Holy Land. The Empire generally would not send talented people like this to the Twin Towers to participate. The Continental Elite competition was placed in the Empire's training, but Clark's leadership this time made all the families in the Cairo Empire smell something amiss. Seeing the expressions of the elders in the conference room, everyone in front of the round table AO couldn't help but let out a long sigh. Angry, even though he, as Jason's grandfather, tried his best to win over Jason. At this time, he had to admit that what Augustus said was absolutely correct. If Jason really joins the Twin Towers, then the Daos family still wants to have anything to do with Jason, then the Daos family is really over in the Empire. The situation on the mainland, after being calm for such a long time, has become somewhat weird. After the mainland elite competition ended, everything seemed to have returned to calm, but Jason and other players were still staying in the residential area of the Twin Towers Administrative Center. The mainland elite competition is just a process, and the purpose of all mainland geniuses participating in this competition is to join the top mainland forces such as the Twin Towers for training. Now that the competition is over, all the players who entered the top 100 are in the mood. I am extremely excited, waiting for the day when Twin Towers will recruit members. Finally, 3 days after the competition ended, all the players who stayed in the residential area and entered the top 100 were notified by the Twin Towers. Immediately, a group of people walked excitedly towards the lobby of the administrative center. Haha, Xuanfeng, congratulations, this time your Northwest has become famous on the mainland. On the way to the administrative center hall, the leaders of many forces congratulated Xuanfeng and other Northwest leaders. Haha, you're welcome, it's a fluke, it's a fluke. Xuanfeng and the others had heartfelt smiles on their faces, and their eyes narrowed into a line of joy. In the recent mainland elite competition, no player has been selected by the Twin Towers in the northwest of the mainland for a long time. This time, although there are geniuses like Jason, Dini Shah, and Temujin who have been rare in the northwest for hundreds of years, but in Xuanfeng in the minds of others, the original goal was only to have a few people selected by the Twin Towers, and they would be thankful. But I didn't expect the results to be so impressive. Both Dini Shah and Claire entered the top 32, Temujin actually entered the top 8, and Jason even swept the entire continent's geniuses. Winning the championship in the competition really made Xuanfeng and others extremely happy. Haha, Xuanfeng, you are too humble. Even the championship fell to your Northwest. What else do you want? Everyone laughed. This time, Jason's sudden emergence and winning the final championship really shocked everyone present. At the same time, it also brought great face to the leaders of some ordinary forces. In the past, the first place in the Continental Elite competition was usually won by the 4 major empires. For some ordinary forces, it was great for players to enter the top 100. Just like the Northwest, there are already many. There is no genius in the top 100 in this generation, and it has never happened before in the history of the competition that a player from a weak force like Northwest won first place. Therefore, all the forces that came to participate in the mainland elite competition, although they seemed to be equal to each other on the surface, were actually divided into 3, 6, or 9 levels. Now Jason's sudden rise has made these ordinary forces feel greatly. His face flushed once. Humph, isn't it just bullshit luck that won the championship? These small forces have really never seen the world. Of course, there are also players and team leaders from some forces who look coldly at the smiling people in the Northwest with a hint of disdain in their eyes. However, they just looked at it with cold eyes and did not say anything. The leaders of these forces all knew that Jason was 22 years old, a 6th-level senior spiritual master, and had the talent to win the championship. When the time comes to be selected by the Twin Towers, the future will definitely be bright, and there is no need to offend such a person just for a little anger. Soon, a group of people all arrived in the lobby of the Twin Towers Administrative Center. Elder Tim from the Spiritual Master Tower and Elder Kevlin from the Spiritual Medicine Master Tower were already waiting here. Everyone, the competition is over. The contestants who can come here are all the finalists who have performed outstandingly in this competition. In front of the hall, Tim spoke with a smile on his face, and his faint majesty spread. Come, all the players are excited and at the same time extremely awe-inspiring. This coercion is not something that Tim can emit. It is purely the aura that he naturally exudes as a 9th-level low-level Holy Spirit Master. However, it is this naturally emitted aura that makes everyone feel the need to look up. It is the instinct of life. Of surrender. With a faint smile on his face, Tim continued, as finalists in this elite competition, the 100 players present can enter our twin towers. However, depending on your performance and strength, and after entering our twin towers, your status will be different at the beginning, from the 11th to the 100th. After entering our twin towers, you will become the peripheral disciples of our twin towers, and the 1st to the 10th. Tim's eyes passed over the faces of Jason and other top 10 players one by one, and then he smiled and said, "Everyone is different on behalf of the Spirit Master Tower. I give this to everyone in the top 10. The promises Clark, Leonardo, Sophia, and Melting Saint, as long as the 4 of you are willing to join our Spiritual Master Tower, our Spiritual Master Tower will give you the status of senior disciples, while Daggett, Cheno, and Janigi, Temujin, and Jason, as long as the 5 of you are willing to join my Spiritual Master Tower, my Spiritual Master Tower will give you the status of inner disciple. As for Kebelos, you can become an outer disciple of my Spiritual Master Tower." He looked at the 10 people in the front row with a smile. "What? Then Jason is actually just an inner disciple?" "Yes, he is the first place in this mainland elite competition. This, with the strength of a 22-year-old 6th-level senior spiritual master, he has obtained the champion of this continental elite competition, and he is also a multi-lineage spiritual master, is actually an inner disciple. On the contrary, the Melting Saint who was eliminated by Jason in the semifinals is a senior disciple." "This? What's going on? What happened? Did Sir Tim make a mistake?" After hearing what Tim said that Jason was just an inner disciple, there was a buzz of discussion in the hall, and everyone was stunned. To be honest, although many people present felt that Jason's victory in the Continental Elite competition was due to great luck, no one denied that Jason was able to survive all the way because of his extremely strong strength. Especially in the last 2 games, after seeing the 3 Series Ultimate Spiritual Ring owned by Jason and knowing that Jason is a 3 Series Elixir Master, everyone felt that in terms of talent, he is only 22 years old now. Jason, the youngest among all the top 10 players, is the most talented genius. But the treatment Tim gave Jason made everyone stunned. At the same time, what surprised everyone was Kebelos. The eyes that everyone looked at were full of pity. Almost everyone knew that this genius who had made it to the top 4 has now become a useless person. Tim made him a peripheral disciple, it was just a rule agreed before the game. But everyone knows that for a useless person without any strength, in a place with fierce competition like the Twin Towers, the only fate left for him is to be eliminated. Hearing everyone's discussion, Tim's face showed no expression at all. After knowing that Jason was a multi-system spiritual master, Tim lost interest in Jason. The stronger Jason's talent, the more he became interested. It's disappointing. In fact, if Jason hadn't won the championship in this competition, Tim would have only wanted to give Jason the status of a peripheral disciple. As for Kebelos, it would be okay if he had not been deposed. Now let him fend for himself among the peripheral disciples. I am afraid that in less than 2 days, Kebelos will understand the cruelty of reality and return to the Cairo Empire. My own family. With a slight smile on his lips, after finishing his promise, Tim looked at each other with Sevlin on the side. Everyone, Kevlin nodded, took a step forward, and shouted loudly. The entire hall fell silent for an instant under Kevlin's shout. Everyone looked at the Elixir Master. As the Tower Elder, he wanted to see what conditions the Spiritual Medicine Master Tower offered to the top 10 players. Kevlin's eyes passed over the faces of Jason and others. When he saw Jason, he smiled slightly, and then said, what Elder Tim said earlier was about the situation of his Spiritual Master Tower. On behalf of the Alchemist Tower, I, Kevlin, make this promise to you, Jason and Rongsheng, as long as you two are willing to join our Alchemist Tower, our Alchemist Tower will grant you the status of 2 senior disciples, and Clark, Sophia, Lai Leonardo, Daggett, Cheno, Janigi, Temujin, as long as you 8 are willing to join our Spiritual Medicine Master Tower, our spiritual medicine master tower will give you the status of inner disciple. As for Kerberos, you can choose become a peripheral disciple of my spiritual medicine master tower. As soon as Kevlin finished speaking, before everyone below could react, Tim from the spiritual master tower on the side looked at Kevlin in surprise. Rong Xing entered the spirit medicine master tower and became a senior disciple. He understood that although alchemy is only a relatively remote subject, a genius like Rongxing, who reached the 6th level of senior alchemy master before the age of 30, has such a talent in alchemy. It is still extremely rare, not to mention that the melting saint is still a 6th level elixir master. However, Jason's status as a senior disciple made Tim puzzled. As Kevlin, he must also know the difficulty of training as a multi-attribute spiritual master. Although Jason is now a 6th level senior elixir master, but the achievements in the future stopped at the 7th level of the Imperial Spiritual Master, and it was not worth using the status of a senior disciple to win over him, which made Tim feel extremely confused. Of course, although Sevlin gave the identity of Jason's senior disciple, which made Tim feel quite curious, in Tim's heart, he always believed that Jason's talent was enough to be given to his inner disciples, and Tim thought highly of him. Still didn't take Jason to heart. Jason and Melting Saint are senior disciples? Clark and Leonardo are just inner disciples? Sevlin's words also caused commotion in the hall. Everyone, you will have 3 minutes to decide your future. Although our spiritual medicine master tower and spiritual master tower are collectively called the Twin Towers, they are 2 independent forces, and each has different resources. What you are doing now, this decision will affect your whole life, and I hope you will consider it carefully. At the front of the hall, Tim and Coughlin both spoke solemnly. In the administrative hall, when Tim and Coughlin finished speaking, the originally noisy hall fell silent for an instant. All the players who entered the top 10 frowned, considering their choices in their hearts, while the players and team leaders who were eliminated looked at these 10 people without saying a word. They all knew what these 10 people had chosen now. Difficult. This mainland elite competition is actually a confrontation between spiritual masters. Although both the spiritual master tower and the spiritual medicine master tower have powerful spiritual masters, in fact, entering the spiritual master tower will definitely help you in your practice than the spiritual medicine master tower. Big. As the founder of the mainland spiritual master guild, it can be said that the strong men in the entire continent have a certain relationship with the spiritual master tower. If they want to improve their strength, the spiritual master tower is the best choice. But on the other side is the alchemist tower. In the Stern continent, the status of elixir masters is extremely high. Although there are not as many things about spiritual masters' practice in the elixir master tower as there are in the spiritual master tower, a powerful elixir master can also make oneself less successful on the road of practice. Take many wrong paths. But the spiritual master can choose to enter the spiritual medicine master tower. In fact, the spiritual master tower also has many powerful spiritual medicine masters. How to choose? Tangled. Many people are struggling because it affects their future. If they make a wrong move, their fate may be completely different, and their future may be completely different. It is difficult to choose, so many people can only consider external factors, such as which force they join, which will help their family the most, or other aspects. However, the most important thing is which aspect values them more. Some players really couldn't make a choice and could only set their sights on the leader of their own force behind them. As a genius who can enter this mainland elite competition, which genius is not talented and determined, but at this time, they hesitated. When the players were making difficult choices, Tim, Kevlin and others in the hall focused their attention on many players. Of course, they focused on observing the top 10 players such as Jason. The choice will allow the Spiritual Master Tower and the Spiritual Medicine Master Tower to determine the winner in this confrontation. In silence, suddenly, okay, 3 minutes have expired. I think everyone present has made their own decision. Tim's majestic voice reached the ears of everyone present, and all the players. I woke up from my thoughts. Just 3 minutes, in the hearts of these hundreds of geniuses, seemed like a century had passed. Many players even had fine beads of sweat on their foreheads, which showed how difficult the choice was. Countless pairs of eyes fell on the faces of Tim and Kevlin. Everyone, now, the players who choose my spiritual master tower, please follow me and stand on the left. Tim said loudly, and then stood on the left side of the hall. Everyone, players who choose the elixir tower, please stand with me on the right side. Kevlin walked to the right side of the hall. You have 2 minutes to make a decision. Remember, once you have made a choice, you cannot change it. Of course, you can also choose to give up and not join any of us, but I believe there should be no such person here. Mu had a smile on his face. After his words fell, a burst of laughter suddenly erupted in the hall, which instantly relieved the heavy atmosphere in the hall. The reason why all the players present participated in this mainland elite competition is to join the Twin Towers. Now that they have reached this point, naturally no one will give up. The players in the middle of the hall were all looking at each other at this moment, waiting for the first person to make a decision. One player gritted his teeth, with determination in his eyes, and then walked towards Tim's side. With the first player to make a decision, the other players gritted their teeth and walked aside after looking at the leader of the forces behind them. After making the decision, their faces showed relief, as if some burden had been lifted. Soon, the entire hall was divided into 2 distinct factions. Except for a few players who had not yet made a decision, the number of people who chose the Spiritual Master Tower and the Spiritual Medicine Master Tower were basically the same. But if we really want to tell the difference, the Spiritual Master Tower is still better than the Spiritual Medicine Master Tower. After all, as spiritual masters, they have more trust in the Spiritual Master Tower where most of the members are spiritual masters. After making their choice, the determined players immediately looked to the front of the hall, wanting to see how the top 10 players were chosen. This look immediately stunned these players. Among the top 10 players, except for Daggett, who ranked 7th, and Janigi, who ranked 10th, who chose the Spiritual Master Tower, and Cherno, who ranked 8th, chose the Spiritual Medicine Master Tower, the remaining first-ranked players Jason, Leonardo in 2nd, Clark in 3rd, Kerberos in 4th, Sophia in 5th, Melting Saint in 6th, and Temujin in 9th were all still standing in the center of the field. Master, whichever side you choose, I will follow you. Claire, who entered the top 32, came to Jason's side immediately. Jason, I'm following you, don't try to throw me away. Dini Shah smiled. Temujin said nothing, but came to Jason's side and expressed his position with his actions. As a disciple, of course you follow the master. Rong Sheng also said with a smile. Jason had actually been prepared in his mind for a long time, but before he could make a decision, he found that a group of people had already surrounded him, which delayed him a lot of time. Looking at the people around him, Jason's face showed no expression at all, but he was extremely moved in his heart. As partners, Dini Shah and the others had completely tied their futures to him, which made Jason feel overwhelmed. There was a slight ripple. In a person's life, everyone will have several opportunities to make important choices. Different from ordinary choices, this choice will affect his life. Now the choice between the Spiritual Master Tower and the Spiritual Medicine Master Tower is it was such an opportunity, but they gave all the opportunities of choice to him alone, which filled Jason's heart with a heavy feeling. Everyone in the hall was stunned. Jason and the others in the middle of the hall didn't understand what they were doing. But according to what Temujin and the others said before, everyone understood that Jason's decision would affect the 5 people around him, 2 of whom were even among the top 10 in this continental elite competition. For a moment, Tim, Coughlin and others all focused on Jason. Since you are willing to follow me together, then let us forge ahead together again. Jason said silently in his heart, then smiled at Elder Sevlin of the Elixir Master Tower and walked to his camp. Whoosh! Continuous footsteps sounded, and Rongxing and his party followed Jason without hesitation, arriving at the camp where the Elixir Master's tower was located. Tim couldn't help but feel a little annoyed in his heart. He never thought that Jason could influence the decisions of so many people. Fortunately for Temujin and others, especially the Melting Saint who he was extremely optimistic about, he also followed Jason. Spirit Medicine Master Tower, this made his heart sink slightly. But now that the deal was done, Tim had no choice but to put this annoyance behind him, and then set his sights on Leonardo and the others who had not yet made a decision. Compared with what the Elixir Tower gave Leonardo and the others, conditions, Tim was full of confidence in the conditions he gave. One is a senior disciple and the other is an inner disciple. There is a huge difference between the two. In Tim's expectation, Leonardo and Sophia also moved when Jason walked to the Elixir Tower. However, the direction they were walking in made Tim stunned for a moment. On the side of the Elixir Master Tower, Jason and his group had just stood still. Before they could turn around, they heard a burst of exclamation from the crowd. Jason immediately turned around and saw Leonardo and Sophia following his footsteps and arriving at the camp where the Elixir Tower was located. "From now on, defeating you is my goal." Leonardo came to Jason with steely eyes, snorted coldly, and then stood aside. On the side, Sophia was speechless. Her expression was holy, with a slight smile on her lips, and her eyes were calm. Although she didn't say anything, her actions behind Jason filled everyone's minds with reverie. What happened? Seeing that so many people followed Jason to the Elixir Tower camp, Tim, who didn't pay much attention to Jason at first, was dumbfounded. The actions of Dini Shah and Temujin, he understood in his heart that after all, Jason and the others were both from the northwest of the continent, and Rongxing, from his conversation with Jason just now, also understood that the two had a certain relationship, but Leonardo and Sophia he didn't understand that in terms of conditions, the conditions he gave the two of them were much higher than those of Kevlin in the Alchemist Tower, but the result a Jason company himself actually decided the choice of 5 top 10 players, especially Leonardo and Sophia, are the absolute geniuses of this continental elite competition. If he had known that because of this result, Tim would have pulled Jason into his camp even if he gave Jason a place as a senior disciple. But now, no matter how much Tim regrets, it's too late. How did Tim know that when Jason first arrived in Spirido City, Sevlin personally came to visit and invite him that night, and then, without knowing Jason's achievements, he promised to become Jason's senior disciple, plus as a master of elixirs in his previous life, Jason had already decided which camp he wanted to join before the game started. In the hall, Tim's face was livid, and he set his sights on the only 2 people left in the center of the hall, Clark and Kerberos of the Cairo Empire. If Clark can be pulled over, even though this year's Continental Elite lost to the Spiritual Medicine Master Tower in the competition for the top 10, it wouldn't be too shameful. In the hall, everyone's eyes fell on the 2 of them, wanting to see their choices. However, until 2 minutes had passed, neither of them made any choice. "We give up." An indifferent voice came from the mouth of Clark, who looked cold and arrogant in the center of the hall, shocking everyone in the hall. "RO. Mainland Elite Competition. This is a competition held by the Twin Towers to select talents across the continent. It can be said that the purpose of this competition is to select talents to join the Twin Towers, and the purpose of the contestants is the same, in order to be able to enter the Twin Towers. Other than that, there will be no other purpose, as the competition itself does not have any prizes. The 4 major empires, as the 4 top forces in the mainland, are inextricably linked to the Twin Towers. Each major empire itself is a holy place that cultivates talented disciples. Knowing the purpose of the mainland elite competition, the 4 major empires, which are also in the selection area, will send out some 7th-order imperial spiritual master level geniuses, but in fact, the real geniuses in each major empire are all left behind. The Holy Land of the Great Empire sends geniuses, except for the top 2, who are used to win the championship of the competition, enhance the reputation of the empire, and after winning, join the Twin Towers and build a relationship with the Twin Towers. The rest, most of the members are geniuses from the private sector, and most of them have no real imperial background. This is an unspoken rule between the four empires and the Twin Towers, a tradition that has continued for countless years. It can be said that the Continental Elite competition is a feast for the Twin Towers to absorb members. All talents will be absorbed by the Twin Towers without any surprises. However, when Clark said these four words, "We give up," at this moment, everyone present was stunned. What's going on with the Cairo Empire? The winner joining the Twin Towers is a rule that has lasted for countless years. Although the players have the right to give up, except for the fact that Kerberos becomes a useless person in the game, or the player dies, basically no player will give up, but this Clark, no one in the hall is not surprised. According to the rules, no matter how good Clark is, as long as the Cairo Empire agrees to his participation, once he is shortlisted, he will enter the Twin Towers. But now, although Clark represents him and Kerberos, the two people go or stay, but everyone knows that the deeper meaning is the voice of the Cairo Empire. At the front of the hall, Tim and Kevlin had cold expressions. The previous battle between the Spiritual Master Tower and the Spiritual Medicine Master Tower, because of Jason and his group, seemed insignificant at this time. Eyes as sharp as knives fell instantly on Kajia, the leader of the Cairo Empire. Although the two of them didn't say a word, the atmosphere in the entire hall suddenly became tense, like a string being suddenly tightened. Everyone in the hall had their eyes fixed on Kajia. This move by the Cairo Empire was like a slap in the face of the Twin Towers. The deeper meaning revealed in it was enough to make everyone present. Everyone is full of fear. In the hall, Kaga's face was full of astonishment, as if he had no idea about Clark's decision, but there was no explanation in his expression. The entire hall was eerily silent, with no one making even a sound. Some people were even more afraid that Tim and Kevlin would get angry on the spot and attack the Cairo Empire's group. The leaders from the other three empires were okay, but the leaders of some small forces even had sweat on their nervous palms. Come on, the anger of the Twin Towers is not something small forces like them can bear. In the silent atmosphere, Clark, Kerberos, you two choose to refuse? Tim spoke slowly from the front of the hall, his tone calm and without any emotion. Yes. Clark looked straight ahead, his tone concise and capable. The disabled Kerberos was no longer so domineering. He just stood behind Clark and nodded. Very good, since all the players present have made their decisions, everyone will have 3 days to stay in Lingdo City and say goodbye to the people from their respective factions. After 3 days, all players will be taken to their chosen places. Forces, as for the players and forces who choose to give up, they can leave on their own. Tim's tone was calm, and he didn't get angry as everyone was worried about. He didn't even look at Clark and others, and then left. Coughlin also, without saying a word, he left with a group of people in the Spiritual Medicine Master's Tower. After such a commotion in the Cairo Empire, everyone was much less excited to join the Twin Towers. They all looked at the group of people in the Cairo Empire, strangely, and then left the hall. On that day, the representatives of the Cairo Empire left Lingdo City and returned to the Cairo Empire. The fact that Clark and Kerberos, the 3rd and 4th place finishers in this Continental Elite competition, did not join the Twin Towers quickly spread in Lingdo City, triggering a lot of heated discussions. No one knows what the Cairo Empire did this time. This kind of blatant slap in the face is not what an empire should do. It will affect many people and forces, not just the fate of 2 geniuses. Some people even worry that the mainland will no longer be peaceful. Some people assert that the Cairo Empire's behavior this time was because it was dissatisfied with the attitude of the Twin Towers in the match between Jason and Kerberos, so it was so arrogant. Los Angeles was actually defeated by the Genius of Northwest in the semifinals. This was the first time in the history of the competition that such a shameful thing happened. However, most people did not believe this rumor. Even if the leader of the Cairo Empire was dissatisfied, he would not make such a hasty decision on such a matter. For a time, there were divergent opinions in the entire Lingdo City. Most people cursed the Cairo Empire for not complying with the rules. After all, Lingdo City belongs to the power of the Twin Towers, and the people here are inextricably linked to the Twin Towers. Many people were waiting to see if the Twin Towers would issue any statement. However, to their disappointment, the Twin Towers, one of the protagonists of this incident, remained extremely silent and did not make any sound from within. No matter how noisy the outside world was, in the northwest residential area, there was no disturbance in Jason's heart, but he continued to practice. For him, whether it is the Twin Towers or what happened in the Cairo Empire, it has nothing to do with him. He has no idea that he has joined the Spirit Medicine Master Tower and is actually a member of the Spirit Medicine Master Tower. In 3 days, for ordinary players who have traveled thousands of miles to visit Lingdo City only once, they must have played in Lingdo City to their heart's content, or stayed with relatives and friends, but Jason did not show any signs of it. He has been slacking off and has been practicing. In Jason's room in the northwest residential area, Jason was quietly sitting cross-legged. The 6th level advanced spiritual power in his body was constantly moving along the secret method of the spiritual god art, transporting surging spiritual power throughout his body. Everywhere, it penetrates into the muscle meridians and activates every cell. Genius is 99% sweat and 1% talent. This is what a famous elixir master in Jason's previous life said, and Jason deeply believes it. Most people will feel extremely bored after practicing continuously for a period of time, but Jason can always maintain a peaceful mood, and he can feel happiness in it. In his previous life, the reason why he was able to reach the level of a 9th level elixir master at such a young age was precisely because of his diligence and his spirit of continuous research and practice year after year. After rebirth, he is actually lonely. Only by constantly practicing and getting closer to his goal can he feel the fulfilling sense of progress. In the room, Jason was practicing silently like this. He didn't know how long it had been, Jason, who had been quietly crossing his legs there with his eyes closed, suddenly exhaled in his mouth, and his spiritual power fluctuated. It flowed out from Jason's body, and Jason's closed eyes suddenly opened in an instant, and a brilliant light flashed across Jason's eyes. Standing up, Jason twisted his somewhat stiff neck and tightened his fists. An extremely powerful spiritual power slowly circulated in his body, and a feeling of power spread out from Jason's body. Finally reached the peak of level 6. Jason sighed softly with a smile on his face. As early as a few months ago, Jason was promoted to the 6th level of Advanced Spiritual Master on the way to Spirido City. Along the way, Jason did not relax at all, and continued to practice hard, absorbing the knowledge between heaven and earth. The spiritual element increases the spiritual energy in your body. The continuous battles in the competition allowed Jason to understand a lot during this period. After long periods of fighting and training, Jason's 6th level peak spiritual power was also cultivated to the extreme. Whether it is training in the trial space, understanding of life and death, or in the ring, passing through obstacles all the way, killing gods when gods block, and killing Buddhas when Buddha blocks Buddha, it has greatly improved Jason, and it is not ordinary and simple. Simple ascetic practice can compare. This made Jason feel that his accumulation over the past few days had reached a peak. As he continued to practice, he finally reached the peak of the 6th level. In terms of the strength and content of spiritual power in his body, Jason now has the capital to challenge the 7th level low-level Imperial Spirit Master. However, where there is capital, and Jason also knows that he is still some time away from being a 7th level Imperial Spiritual Master. This is not a gap in spiritual power, but in the perception of spiritual power, or in other words, the law of spiritual power. Understanding. The biggest difference between a 7th level Imperial Spiritual Master and a 6th level Spiritual Master is that the 7th level Imperial Spiritual Master can communicate with the spiritual power of heaven and earth, that is, he has an understanding of the elemental laws he cultivates and integrates with them. In addition, only the impact of spiritual power within the body can successfully advance the Imperial Spirit Master to the 7th level. This point is extremely important. On the mainland, 90% of the 6th level senior spiritual masters are stuck here. They are unable to reach the 7th level Imperial Spiritual Master realm and cannot become a high-level professional. Understanding the laws of spiritual power, comprehending the laws of spiritual power, and integrating with the spiritual elements between heaven and earth, what kind of state is it? In the room, Jason frowned and pondered. The next practice is not just about absorbing spiritual power, can be solved by increasing the strength of spiritual power in the body. Claire, where is Jason? Is it possible that he is still practicing? At this moment, there was a sudden sound of footsteps outside the room, and then a moving voice came in. Everyone, the young master is practicing in his room. If you have anything, you can tell me. I will tell you after the young master has finished practicing. Claire's voice came from the door, with a hint of softness. Determined. Hearing Claire's voice, Jason's heart trembled slightly, and then a wry smile appeared on his face. Although Claire is his maid, Jason actually doesn't like the feeling of being served. When practicing, he also likes to practice quietly alone. But every time when Jason was practicing, Claire always asked to stand outside Jason's door and stand guard for Jason to prevent anyone from disturbing him while he was practicing. In fact, Jason couldn't remember how many times he had criticized Claire for this habit, but every time Claire nodded and said she knew. When she learned about Jason's practice, he took the initiative to stand at the door again, which made Jason quite speechless and also felt a little touched. Of course, this also resulted in Jason not daring to tell Claire that he wanted to practice before he started practicing, or ordering her to practice by herself or do other things. But once she was free, Claire would still come. Go to the door of Jason's room and wait there. Jason, wouldn't he get bored if he practices every day? Dinish's voice came again, with a hint of speechlessness in it. I didn't expect Master to practice so hard. No wonder he is so strong. If it doesn't work anymore, I will practice hard when I get to the Spirit Medicine Master Tower. Another playful voice sounded next to him. From the tone of his voice, Jason knew it was him. His cheap apprentice became a saint. Everyone, what do you want early in the morning? Jason came to the door of the room, opened the door, and said with a smile. Master. Seeing Jason, Rongxing shouted immediately. Master. Claire on the side was full of surprise. Jason, you're finally out. Come on, let's go for a walk together. We've been staying in the room these days, and we're not afraid of getting sick. Seeing Jason, Dinisha couldn't help but pull him forward. Sen walked out. Let's go out for a walk together. Temujin on the side also said indifferently. Everyone focused their attention on Jason's face. Seeing everyone's expectant eyes, Jason smiled and said, then let's go. I haven't had a good time in this Spirit Do city for so many days. The spiritual power in his body has reached the 6th level. Jason, who was at his peak, knew that if he stayed in the room to practice, it would not be of much help in advancing to the 7th level of the Imperial Spirit Master. It was better to go out with Temujin and the others and maybe have a different experience. After hearing Jason's words, everyone was stunned and looked at Jason as if they had seen a ghost. Master, do you really want to go out with us? Rongxing said in shock. In the past 2 days, everyone had invited Jason countless times. Jason had never gone out before. The previous invitations were just their routine, but they did not expect that Jason would actually go out with them. What? Aren't you welcome? Then I can go back to practice. Jason pretended to turn around. No, no welcome, most welcome. Fusion Saint rushed forward and grabbed Jason. On the side, Dinish's eyes were also shining. Come on, Claire, let's go out for a walk together. Okay, Master. Claire's tone was also filled with excitement. The group immediately left the northwest residential area and walked towards Lingdo City. In the past 2 days, Dini Shah and the others had basically visited all areas of Lingdo City except the North City. This time everyone went to the North City. As the largest city in the Twin Towers area, Lingdo City is extremely prosperous, with the streets bustling with traffic and people coming and going. Many buildings in the city are made of reddish-brown boulders, full of vicissitudes of time. Everyone was walking in the North City, surrounded by the lively flow of people, lingering in the ancient squares and shops on both sides. Although there was no purpose, it had a different flavor. It is rare to enjoy this world of mortals. The world is extremely noisy, but Jason feels more and more lonely. People are rushing around him. He seems to be alone in this world, and no one can understand him. Jason felt like he was an unreal existence, observing the world coldly, and everything had nothing to do with him. He came from 3,000 years later and was not supposed to belong to this era, but he came here unexpectedly. He did not exist in this era, but because of his arrival, everything has changed. The era in the future is still what I have experienced. That one? Jason was puzzled. Look, there's a crystal gambling shop ahead. At this moment, an extremely luxurious and huge building suddenly appeared in front of everyone around the corner. Dini Shah, who was walking in front, suddenly said something to Jason. Back to reality. Gambling crystal workshop? Rong Sheng also had a hint of excitement on his face. Master, what is the gambling crystal workshop? Claire asked curiously from the side. Jason shook his head, throwing away the previous feeling from his mind, and then explained with a smile. The gambling crystal workshop is actually a place where you bet on various crystal stones. Everyone spends money to buy crystal stones, cut them into pieces, and see if there are spirit crystals in them. The bets are usually on Yuanjing stones. Spirit crystals? Claire still had a look of confusion on her face. Isn't it brewing in the veins? It just needs to be mined. Why are you still betting? Haha. Jason smiled and said, Claire, the spiritual crystal you are talking about is just the most common kind of spiritual crystal. On the mainland, various kinds of crystals emerge endlessly. Some extremely precious crystals are produced from very special veins, and it is difficult for ore hunters to see through them. Neither spiritual power nor spiritual awareness can detect the inside of them. Only by actually cutting them open can one know whether there are crystals inside. Stone, that's why there is an industry like gambling on crystals. After hearing Jason's explanation, Claire nodded in understanding, but she still didn't quite understand in her eyes. Haha, don't think about it. When you get inside after a while, you will know what happened to this gambling crystal. Jason said with a smile. As an elixir, crystal gambling is a skill that must be mastered. Of course, each elixir's achievements in crystal gambling are naturally different. In addition to elixirs, alchemists, or prospectors and other professions, for betting on crystals is generally involved, and even some powerful spiritual masters, with their unique spiritual knowledge, will occasionally gamble on crystals, regardless of their profession. Among the ancient ores produced in these veins, there are even some special rare objects unearthed, so many extremely powerful people are keen on gambling on crystals. Like the Blood Abyss mountain that Jason saw in the secret realm of the Spirit Pond, the Blood Abyss essence is actually some kind of special ore. However, the Blood Abyss essence is easily detectable by spiritual sense in the rocks, so it cannot be used for gambling. Crystal. However, the mineral veins of crystal stones are generally in the hands of some big forces, and the crystal stones that can be used for gambling are generally extremely rare. In a small place like the Northwest, there are very few places where crystal gambling is possible. Yes, the quality of the stone is usually very average, and the gambling crystal Feng in the Soldo city in this continent definitely has rare crystal ores that other small forces in the mainland do not have. That's why Dini Shah and Melting Saint were so excited. Seeing the gambling crystal square, Dini Shah and Rongxing became interested immediately, and hurriedly walked over happily. At this time only a few days had passed since the Continental Elite competition. Most of the powerful people from all over the mainland who came to watch the Continental Elite competition had not left. Therefore, there was an endless stream of people in front of Gambling Crystal Square, full of pedestrians. The closer they walked, the more everyone could feel the grandeur of this building. There were complex dragon patterns on the outer rock wall of the entire building. It was actually made of extremely rare long-hewn rock, which can be called luxurious. On the top of the door of the building, there are several large gilt characters, Holy King Gambling Crystal Square. The entire door is extremely wide and can accommodate many people to enter. Jason and others entered in a group. The Holy King's Gambling Crystal Square has many large halls, covering an extremely huge area. The crystal ore is all over the floor, neatly arranged in rows, arranged according to size, ranging from tens of thousands of kilograms to several small quantities, densely packed. However, there are many crystal ores, and most of them are people. There are all kinds of people. A rough estimate shows that there are thousands of people on this floor. They are all looking at the crystal ores in front of them. Some are just watching the fun, and some are just watching. It's extremely lively for those who want to buy it and try it out. Dini Shah and others were stunned as soon as they entered. Coming from the northwest, they had never seen such a magnificent crystal gambling house. Even the melting saint from the Kamikaze Empire was full of surprise. However, Jason and the others did not stay much longer. Although the halls on this floor are large, they are generally of the lowest quality. Here are the most common crystal ores. It can be said that many stones were pulled back casually to fill up the number. Really, there are very few stones where rare crystals can be found. The people who stop here are usually the first time they come to Gambling Crystal Square. They are purely for experience or want to try their luck. There are very few real experts. On the first floor, Jason and the others did not stay much. Melting Saint and Dini Shah seemed to be knowledgeable people and walked directly to the deepest level. As a few people went deeper, the building inside became more unique. Starting from the third floor, there were dedicated young women who were responsible for reception and introducing various crystal ores. There was also a crystal master who was in charge of dissolving the stones. Jason and the others still didn't stop at all and kept moving inward. Soon after, they arrived at the 7th floor of the building. However, this time, Jason and his party were stopped by the guards at the door of the 7th floor. Jason immediately knew that the real place for gambling was above the 7th floor. Their attitude was quite respectful, but their expressions were neither humble nor arrogant. They said, "Guys, please stay. Starting from the 7th floor, only distinguished guests can enter." "Distinguished guests, aren't we?" Rong Xing immediately shouted. "I'm sorry, we have our own rules here, and not everyone can enter. What standards?" Dini Shah interrupted the guard's explanation and said directly, "If you want to enter the 7th level, you must be an elixir master of level 5 or above. For other professions, you must reach level 7 or above before you can enter." "Watch." Melting Saint stopped talking and took it out from his body. A 6th level low-level elixir master badge. "Invite some distinguished guests." The guards immediately looked stern and retreated. Jason and others walked in. Before they could take a good look at the hall, they heard a burst of noise coming from the front of the hall. "Boy, with such little ability, you still want to bet with me? Haha, go back and study hard for 10 years before you come back." An arrogant voice came. Jason and the others looked around and saw a gorgeously dressed young man arrogantly talking. Pointing at a young man in front of him, he lectured. "Sri Lanka." Jason and the others were stunned when they saw the young man being taught a lesson.